Well, a prominent federal union is breaking from its nonpartisan political tradition and will be actively campaigning against the federal Conservative government in 2015. The Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, which represents 60,000 members, including 15,000 scientists, says the federal government's attack on science and unions has left it no choice but to speak out as Election Day approaches. Now, Debi Daviau is the president of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada. She joins us on the line now with more on the story. Hello.
Good afternoon, Stephen.
Why has your union decided to break from the tradition of nonpartisanship to become politically active heading into the 2015 election?
Well, for us, it's clear. These are really extraordinary times, and so we needed to take different measures to address these extraordinary circumstances. We have a government that refuses to engage in transparency, even in terms of providing information to the parliamentary budget officer. They have systematic muzzling, defunding, deprofessionalization. They have policies now being based solely on ideology. They've engaged in deregulation of important industries, on the dependence of self-regulation in some industries, such as food safety, increased reliance on outsourcing. I mean, you name it. This government is attacking the very services that Canadians depend on. All things considered, the government's picked a fight with us through legislation and through public and through the media, and we just feel like we have two options: to fight or roll over, and our members have chosen to fight.
The government, though, has been tough on unions since it was elected back in 2006. They closed the office of the National Science Advisor in 2008. I mean, if nothing about the government's policy or attitude toward science has changed, why do this now? Why this election if this has been going on for some time?
Well, in 2006, we really only saw the very tips of the iceberg. Before the last election, I guess 2008, we saw just the tips of the iceberg on this government's attitude towards science. But what we've seen since then, since this government was elected into a majority government, in fact, what we've seen is a complete disregard for evidence. And that's sort of at the crux of why we're doing what we're doing. Our members are very committed to generating that evidence, so they're extremely put off when that evidence is ignored. So all of a sudden, all of these concerns, which they were willing to ignore, come rushing up to the forefront with what is really their primary concern, which is you have eliminated programs that are essential to the health and safety and well-being of the Canadian public. And so I think that's the turning point for our scientific population.
Debi, I hear these stories all the time, and I hear them from scientists and from federal employees, but how would the average Canadian hearing this right now, how or where might they have noticed their own lives being affected by these policies and by these cuts?
You know, in many places, on the positive side of the house, you know, our members are responsible for the regulations that were put in the banking industry. So the crash that occurred in 2008 in the housing market in the United States was much more moderated here because of the work that our members do in setting regulations. So let's look at an area like food safety and a lot of the food scandals that we've seen with tainted meat products and unsanitary conditions.
But are any of those directly related to government policy?
Absolutely. Not just government policy, but government work. So there are government employees that do inspections, except now they've turned it into a self-regulated industry. So now the company that provides the food has to do its own inspections, and nobody's overseeing those inspections because there isn't the resources in government to do it anymore. Another example is deregulation, which we see the devastating impact of in the train explosion. In Magog, I guess it was, you know, exactly the same scenario where the government has deregulated industry in order to make it easier for business to earn profit, but has not put the health and safety of Canadians at the forefront of their objectives. And so our scientists, being nonpartisan and unbiased, just simply biased towards the facts, are in a much better position to determine the right types of policies or make recommendations on the right type of policies that prevent those kinds of accidents from happening. In fact, the government is doing exactly the reverse, and we are seeing the devastating impact over and over again.
Debi, what kind of support did you get from your membership before taking this position? Did you canvass your members on whether they wanted to support this position?
Indeed. I engage with my members regularly right across the country, and we've been building towards this position all year. In fact, we did engage in a far more politically active way in both the Ontario and the New Brunswick provincial elections. And we use those as pilots, so to speak, for this upcoming federal election to determine what types of actions can we be involved in, where can we best allocate our resources, and what exact issues do we need to be focused on where it comes to our members. Keep in mind, the Institute remains a nonpartisan organization, and we will continue, even during this campaign, to do things in a professional way.
You don't sound nonpartisan.
Well, I have to admit that as an individual, I'm not feeling overly nonpartisan. As an employee of this government and a person who has, been personally impacted, and our membership has been broadly impacted by the choices of this government.
You're the president of this institution that you say is nonpartisan, and yet here you are speaking out in a very partisan way. Does that serve as a signal for the rest of the institution?
Well, in fact, I'm representative of our active membership. I've had maybe no members express concerns over our greater engagement. We, in fact, are not partisan. Partisan would mean that we would be aligning ourselves with parties
is aligning yourself against a party not also a form of partisanship?
I would say that it certainly steps closer to partisanship, but still remains nonpartisan and well within the boundaries of our policies around nonpartisanship.
Debi, it's very good to talk with you this afternoon. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
That's Debi Daviau, the president of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada. 21